Incredible news. Scientists have identified something that you can do to slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease by up to 7 years. Scientists identified you can slow down the progression of Alzheimer's by slowing down the buildup of a protein called tau, and you can do this through exercising. Here to explain more is everyone's favourite neuroscientist, Toby.
Thanks, Joe. So firstly, we have to understand a little bit more about Alzheimer's disease. So when we think of Alzheimer's, we're thinking of two key proteins, the first of which is called amyloid beta. Now, decades before someone shows any symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, we see the build-up and spread throughout the brain of clumps of amyloid beta protein outside of nerve cells, called plaques. Then, after a while, we start to see the build-up of a second protein called tau. This forms clumps inside nerve cells, which leads to the death of these nerve cells that spreads throughout the brain. We see quite a strong correlation between the amount of tau in the brain and where it's spread to with the progression of the disease and how poorly someone is. So what about this study? What were they looking at? Well, they were looking at walking. They were using pedometers, like you have on your smartwatch or your smartphone, and they were tracking the number of steps that people walked each day. They had two groups of people that they were looking at here, those with low amounts of amyloid in the brain and those with high amounts of amyloid in the brain. And what they saw was quite interesting. Specifically in the group of people with high amounts of amyloid in the brain, they saw a much slower build-up of tau protein and progression of Alzheimer's disease in those people who walked more, around 5,000 steps a day, than they did in people who walked fewer steps a day.
So, what can we get from this? Well, those who walked between 3,000 to 5,000 steps a day, their progression of Alzheimer's disease was on average 3 years slower. Then for those who walked on average between 5,000 and 7,500 steps a day, their progression of Alzheimer's disease was on average 7 years slower. However, walking more than 7,500 steps a day provided no further protection against Alzheimer's and no further slowing of the progression of the disease than those who walked between 5,000 and 7,500 steps a day. It demonstrates that those with the fastest mental decline are people with low levels of exercise and with a high risk of Alzheimer's disease. Scientists are excited that the use of moderate exercise, so 5,000 to 7,500 steps a day, can be used alongside other therapies to gradually slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease and give you longer with your loved ones. So if you're looking for a potential way to slow down your Alzheimer's and stay in good mental shape, the key takeaway of this study is get out and get active.